Well, joining me live from our Lagos studio, Shofela Koka, who is currently in Nigeria conducting an animation masterclass on promoting the 10-part animated series. And as well, I'm joined by Amanda Roach Brown, who joins me both from our Lagos studio. It's great to have you on the show. Of course, Amanda, the acting public affairs officer at the U.S. Consulate General, Lagos. So that was a mouthful. Let's get right to the conversation. How are you both doing? Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. We're great.
Absolutely. So I'm going to begin with you, Shofela. Of course, I already spoke about it in parts, the series, your master classes, but put it in better perspective as to what exactly just brought you to Nigeria this time.
Yes, so this is a homecoming for me, actually. It's good to be back after about 18 years. I was actually back here 2 years ago for the research trip for Moremi, but this is actually meeting people in the animation community and doing workshops with them to provide insight into the process of making Moremi, which premiered a couple of nights ago in Lagos and on Monday premiered in Abuja. So you can imagine how excited I've been. It's been so welcoming, so much fun.
Oh, and I would like to just touch on that experience. I love that you called it the Moremi experience. Just share with us that journey in the entertainment industry from your first project to your current role as a creator and director on this elaborate series, that's Kizazo Motor Generation Fire, but then specifically creating your short, which was Moremi.
Yes, I started out in the video game industry as a character designer for studios like Activision and Sony, like you mentioned. And I became an art director in video games. But I was approached by a woman and a man called Aaron and Amanda Kopp to art direct an animated documentary called Liana. And that's what led me into animation. And that's animation is my first love. So that was all the taste I needed to stay in the industry. So after that project, I got many opportunities to work on as a character designer on different projects. And it led me eventually to work on Moremi with Disney Plus and Triggerfish. And I've also worked as a character designer in comics as well with my brother on the project called New Masters. But of course, I'm here for Moremi, which is basically a love letter to where I'm from. I'm from Lagos. I'm Yoruba, and essentially when I pitched the film to Triggerfish and to Disney, I pitched it as a homecoming, a way to express the value I have for the place I'm from, the longing I have for the places I went to when I was a kid, Olumorok, and most of southwestern Nigeria. So it was a longing to experience these places in nature again. And the character always really fascinated me. So she's a woman that's clever and cunning. She was a warrior, but she was resourceful in equal measure. And those aspects of her character and her decision-making have always inspired me in my life. And so I hope that the film itself would inspire people in that way.
1000%. I love how passionately you speak about Moremi, but I'd like to bring Amanda into the conversation now. Of course, this visit was made possible thanks to the American Film Showcase. So I want us to talk about that briefly and what exactly it does, especially for storytellers and creators like Shofela.
Yeah, thank you. And as you mentioned in your intro, the American Film Showcase is a program that's a partnership between the U.S. Department of State along with the University of Southern California School of Cinematic Arts. And it's actually been around for about 10 years. And what it really does is it brings screenings of various American documentary films to different countries. But we also do a lot of master classes and training of up-and-coming filmmakers in these countries. So that's how the U.S. Consulate was able to partner with the American Film Showcase and with Disney so that we could bring Shofela here to screen his film.
About this partnership, especially because we are in the best time right now, especially for Nigeria, with regards to building our creative economy and the space in general. Now, over the last few weeks, we've had several festivals, we've had several showcases that have just pointed us towards the direction of where the film industry in Nigeria is going. But one conversation that I don't hear a lot about is animation. And I suspect the reason we don't talk about that is the deficiency we have in the know-how and the technology. So with this partnership, how do you think this collaboration could further inspire more creatives who are interested in animation to pursue this passion that they have?
So yes, you've mentioned that we are seeing a really interesting time here in Nigeria where the creative industries, not just film, but of course music, have really taken off, and it's getting the recognition that it deserves globally. And that's one of the reasons why the U.S. consulate has really continued to invest in the Nigeria creative industry and, rightly also in animation. For us, we always see that we want to support those up and coming and emerging sectors of the industry. So in particular, over the past year, we've brought various experts here to Nigeria to work with animators, Shofela being one of them himself. And then we also do exchanges where we identify up-and-coming animators, and they go to the United States for exchange programs. I think for us at the U.S. consulate, the U.S. mission in Nigeria, we really look to the creative industry, including animation, as a way to bring more opportunities to the youth. And we see it as a win-win for both of our countries. This is a way for Nigerians to tell their story to the world. And frankly, Americans and everyone around the globe has fallen in love with the story.
1000%. So now, Shofela, I want to bring the conversation back to you. Of course, you've told the story behind Moremi, and you've spoken passionate about what exactly inspired you to create this. Now, speaking on your master classes, what type of messages are you putting out there? What messages are you conveying? And the impact as well for Kizazo Moto as a whole, the whole 10-episode series. What impact would you like it to have on audiences in Nigeria and even beyond?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly why I'm here. It's because Moremi and Kizazimoto as a whole is essentially to show the whole world that Africa has voices, right? But specifically that there is diversity in Africa and diversity even in Nigeria within storytelling here. And the master classes, I was just at Radiosity in Lakwe today, and I was at SMIDS yesterday in Maryland. And I can't tell you how amazing the animators are there, and just the interactions I've had with them, the level of excitement and engagement. I don't believe there's any shortcoming in the creative or the technical ability of the animators here. I think maybe the problem here is access to the wider market most of the time, or funding, or the platform to tell a story like Moremi, for instance, on a large scale. And I believe that a lot of the workshops today and yesterday were mostly about behind the scenes about how Moremi was made. But one thing we had a lot of back and forth about was just essentially how to tell a personal story so that it does appeal to a universal audience. Because, our stories here in Nigeria, they come with a lot of specificity. But the world is ready for any kind of story like that, because I do believe that the personal, when told well, becomes universal. Moremi, for instance, in our story is a mother. Of course, everyone has a mother. But really, the story is a dynamic between a mother and a son, and the reconciliation between the two of them. And that's a kind of theme that anyone in the world can come to, even though there is Yoruba spoken in the film, for instance, or references to wider themes or aesthetics in Yoruba culture. So it's that kind of thing that we've been discussing in the last couple of days in the workshops.
That's amazing. So in terms of advice for people, of course, who haven't, I know you have to head back. You live in Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. So I know you have to head back, but for people who are very interested in this field, people who aspire to be like you someday. I mean, I have a little friend of mine. She's an amazing illustrator, fantastic illustrator, in fact. But it's not a space that we have a lot of illustrators a lot of people celebrating the work of illustrators, let me put it that way. So advice on how you can go from social media to the big screen like Disney Plus, what would you say?
Well, first of all, I would say your friend has to be lucky. But no, really, I believe skill and craft are really important to work on in your discipline, whatever it is, but specifically in art and illustration. But I would say the one thing I always try and tell young people or people coming into the industry is that it's very important to keep the creative fire alive in you. The things around your life that actually feed what your work, your passions. Because, you know, on those days when you're up till about 2 a.m. at night, you will return to those things. Like for me, it's a love for nature or a love for dance and a love for film, for instance, or family. You know, make sure you keep those connections alive so that the creative fire in you doesn't go out, essentially. So that's my advice, I would say.
I love that. Now, Amanda, before I let you go, I want us to do like a little bullet point list on just ways that you think the U.S. government can support more illustrators within the creative space within Nigeria, especially as it pertains to animation, because I think Izazimoto, for instance, is such a beautiful story, and we can only have more stories about our culture and our art being told, especially by people who have lived through these experiences, just like Shofela Koka has.
No, I definitely agree that you know, storytelling really is one of a country's, a culture's treasures, and we should be encouraging young people to pursue these you know, careers really as a way for the future. As it relates to the U.S. Embassy and the U.S. Consulate in Nigeria, what we're always doing are looking for opportunities to connect with young people, to expose them to more different ideas. You know, a lot of times we talk about exchange and partnership because it's really not just about bringing somebody from the United States here to teach a class. It's also about that person who comes, they gain so much themselves, yeah, learning from the young people who they interact with. So we have been doing this for, you know, nearly a decade in terms of our exchange programs in all various creative sectors, and we're looking forward to doing it more. As I mentioned earlier, really Nigeria's creative industry has taken off, and American companies have realized that. So that's why we're discussing Disney Plus. We talk about Netflix, Amazon. These are all streaming platforms that are now places where the world is consuming, you know, Nigerian storytelling, Nigerian stories. So here at the U.S. Mission in Nigeria, we're just always continuing to look for those opportunities to expose young talent to Nigeria's young talent to the world.
Absolutely. Amanda Shofela, congratulations on the beautiful work that you've done so far. And thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I wish you a safe trip back, and hopefully you visit us sometime soon. Yeah?
Thank you.